Shabbat Shalom and Shana Tova to everybody. It's so nice to see you again. For everybody who joined us with Jewish Standard Time, who came in a little bit late. I'm Rabbi Jason Rosner. It's nice to see you. To those of you online, nice to see you as well. Over the course of this year's holiday season, my first with you, you'll hear me talk about Midrash, you'll hear me talk about artificial intelligence, you'll hear me talk about other planets, you'll hear me talk about massacres, past and present. But tonight, I thought I would start with a story. Because you see, when a rabbi wants to teach a lesson, what do? We tell a story. We say questioning is the essence of Judaism, but that's not exactly what we mean. What we mean is the story that you get in response when you ask a question, that is Judaism. So what question am I asking? I open with this question. Judaism talks about God as sovereign at this time of year. Very coronation-y language. God has a throne, God has a crown, God might or might not have a beard, we're not sure. This is not a particularly relatable God image for most of us because we had an experience of a real-life coronation recently, the coronation of King Charles III, and to me that wasn't super relatable. Don't know about you, but I don't own any of those gold vestments, and if any of you do, then we accept donations in kind here, and we'll be happy to fund a cantorial chair into perpetuity. But I'm not a huge fan of the sovereignty language for God, and if God can't be compared to a king or a queen or an empress, to what may God be compared? Let me tell you a story. Once there was a prosperous baker. She had a nice bakery, a nice husband, nice kids, nice dog, and a nice turtle. I don't know why the turtle always gets the awe. In addition to being the town baker, because she was a well-to-do town baker, she sat on the synagogue's board. And one year when Rosh Hashanah came around, she said to herself, "Hey, the rabbi is always hawking me a chinik," that means like annoying me. The rabbi is always annoying me. Oh, help the needy. Oh, help. God wants you to help the needy. Oh, help the needy, help the needy, help the needy. But if God wants me to help the needy so much, God can do some of the heavy lifting. God can meet me halfway. So she resolved to test God and see whether God really cared at all, whether she helped the needy. So early morning before Rosh Hashanah, because she's a baker, she gets up early, she woke up and she baked the two most beautiful chalot you've ever seen. Candied raisins, perfect golden crust. Amazing. These chalot, you could die for these chalot. But she wanted to test God. And then she had to test herself because she had to keep herself from eating them. So before anyone else in town arose, she snuck across the neighborhood in the darkness of pre-morning and opened up the synagogue door because remember, she was a board member and board members sometimes have keys. So she opened the synagogue's door and she walked in. And when she walked in, she saw the light splashing patterns across the carpet. She saw the familiar chairs and she smelled the smells. And she walked in and she looked right up the main aisle, right where our executive director is sitting. She looked up the aisle from there. And she walked up slowly to the front of the room and slowly up onto the bimah and slowly forward, slowly towards the ark. She wasn't sure why, but she walked towards the ark. And in a moment of blind confusion, she was compelled to open the ark and slip the chalot inside. And she said, if you really care about me giving to the needy, it's your problem now. And she turned around, slammed the ark, walked back out the door, didn't lock it because she's a board member and she forgot, and goes about her day. In the same town, on the other side of town, there was a less well-to-do guy. This guy was a cobbler. Does anybody remember what a cobbler is? A shoemaker. Very good. He was a cobbler. He had been prosperous. He had been an artisan back in the days when making shoes was a very lucrative employment. But times had changed. And by no fault of his own, when the cobbler went Rosh Hashanah morning to look for food to feed his family, he opened the cupboards, and lo and behold, they were bare. He hung his head in shame. Well, I guess he said to himself, I guess I have to beg. I have to feed my family, so I'll beg. And he resolved to beg at the train station. So he left his house, and as he was walking by the train station, what building should he pass? The synagogue. And wouldn't you know it, that board member had left the door open. So he walks over, he sees the door is ajar, he walks over to shut the door, and he thinks, I've never been in a synagogue on my own before. I'm just a cobbler. But I'm going to go in. So he goes inside. And he's really hungry. And he needs to go beg, but something compels him. He's not sure what. And he walks in and he walks up the aisle. He's not sure why, but he feels, something. He feels really moved, and he walks up on the bima, and he walks up to right about where I'm standing. And he says, God, if you're really there, do you care about me? Do you care whether I starve or not? It's Rosh Hashanah. I have nothing to feed my family with. Do you really care about me? Silence. Do you really care about me? Nothing. Do you really, come on, you really care about me? Nothing. You don't care. I have a spark, the rabbi always says. I have a spark of divinity in me. Do you care? No? Well, I have some choice words for you then, master of the universe or mistress of the universe. And it's a 4-letter word. And it goes like this. And he pounds it on the thing in frustration. And wouldn't you know it, one of the ark doors clicked open. And a smell wafted forth. What? Really? I prayed for this. I yelled at you when you sent me bread? And it looks so delicious. All right, well, I'm not looking a gift horse in the mouth or gift ark in the mouth. So he took the bread, put them in his coat, closed the ark, left, went home, shared the news with his family, and was so happy. And that night they had a wonderful Rosh Hashanah dinner. That night, after dinner, it was time for what? What happens after dinner on Rosh Hashanah? Services. And wouldn't you know it, the cobbler is back in services, and guess who else is back in services? The baker. And the baker's starting to get nervous because the baker thinks to herself, gosh, those halot, they're awfully identifiable. And as the service goes on and they get towards Elenu, when she knows they're going to open the ark, she starts to squirm. I don't know if I should have done this. Sometimes in synagogue, people are a little judgmental. I don't know. They get to Aleinu, her heart, they get to Aleinu, Aleinu. They open the ark, no bread. What a relief, but what a relief. Did that mean that it worked? Did God take my bread and deliver it somewhere to someone needy? I guess so. Well, this means what do I have to do? I guess now if that worked, that means the rabbi is right. And every week I have to go put bread in the ark. So every week she gets up and she puts bread in the ark. And every week the cobbler gets up to feed his family. And every week he goes and he gets the bread out of the ark. And this goes on for a year. And finally, the baker can take it no more. She has to share. Has anybody ever, when I was a young, now my grandmother, blessed memory, has passed away, but in front of her house, she swore that there was a tree that grew in the shape of the Virgin Mary. And she said, don't tell anyone. I don't want to have lots of people flocking there to see the tree. And so, finally, the baker goes to see the rabbi. Rabbi, the baker thinks, we'll figure this out. The rabbi, she's very smart. I'll go see her. The baker goes to see the rabbi. Rabbi, I got to tell you something. And the rabbi is incredulous. And the rabbi says, that's real interesting. It's nice of you to do. What an amazing miracle. Why don't you keep that up for a few more weeks? I just want to do a little investigation, but keep up the good work. Okay. Baker goes home. Then over the next few weeks, the rabbi is very smart. The rabbi hides behind the ark. And the rabbi sees the baker come in and put the challahs in the ark, and the cobbler come in and take the challahs out of the ark. And the next week, the rabbi calls the two into the rabbi's office, and she says, they're on the edge of their seats, I have an answer to your miracle. And then the rabbi proceeded, as rabbis do, to burst their bubble. Sorry, it wasn't God after all. But you, baker, look how you were moved to care for the cobbler. And cobbler, look how you were moved to come in the synagogue, a place you knew would be a place of support. Isn't it beautiful? And isn't that what we're all looking for in synagogue after all? Although this may have been the right answer, secretly, everyone was a little disappointed because they all had hoped that God had been responsible. But you couldn't argue with the rabbi. You heard me, right? You can't argue with the rabbi, so they thanked the rabbi and they got up to leave. And just as the two were about to cross the door and leave the rabbi's office and the rabbi was going to get on with answering emails, all of a sudden the walls started to shake and the floor started to rumble and the sky turned a weird color. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Rabbi, this is God. Almighty? Rabbi, do not be too quick to write me out of the story. Who do you think it was who knew the baker would put the chalot in the ark? And who do you think it was who encouraged the cobbler to come to synagogue? Who planted the ideas in their head? Was it not I? I inspire humans to take right action. And at this point, the rabbi, as I would do in this situation, is trembling under their desk. And she comes out and she says, but Master of the Universe, I have a question. What? I have a question. Okay, what's your question? Why, if you are so mighty, did you need to make it look like a coincidence? There are many ways to encourage a people to live together in harmony in a civil society. I could interfere directly in my people's lives. If you've read the Torah, you'll see I did it a lot, and it did not work out well. I was what you would call a helicopter parent. And my children rebelled, like children do with overprotective parents. So I decided, hands off. I'm not going to help out at all. But when I did that, everybody fought and had no guidance. So now, what I do is I plant ideas in people's minds that spur them to right action. I do not use force. I use a light touch. And with that, the voice was gone, never to return. The end. Sometimes in our lives, we feel compelled to act ethically, even when doing so is against what we would understand to be our self-interest. Sometimes we are sick or sad or depressed, and we look for help and we find energy where we were not expecting it. And sometimes when you walk into synagogue, you feel a little warmth that you realize you needed. In those moments, we feel God's light touch, inspiring us, sustaining us, and reminding us that we matter. As we enter these holidays together, I wish you all a year of meaning, a year of health, a year of sweetness, Shana Tova Umetuka, a happy and sweet new year.